Hi, I'm Dr. G, the Mad Shrink, and I'm a board-certified psychiatrist who's here to offer you information and advice about mental health and to challenge your assumptions about things that you thought you already knew. I look forward to being with you today on this podcast and in future ones. Today, I'll be talking with you about ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. So let's get started. Now, why even discuss it? What is the point of making this my first podcast? Well, first, a definition. ADHD is a set of signs and symptoms dominated by difficulties with sustained attention, otherwise known as concentration, usually accompanied by being easily distracted, restlessness, often impulsivity, and anxiety. But the sustained attention is probably the cornerstone symptom. It is a problem starting in childhood, and it will continue about 75% of the time into adulthood, although it looks somewhat different. The manifestations can be different in adults as opposed to children. But if you think you have started having ADHD for the first time when you're an adult, never had such problems before, you probably have a different set of problems because typically it starts in childhood. Now, the question of why discuss it, it's an increasingly prevalent problem. And my goodness, I would say close to half of the new patients who come to see me for assistance have at least as some component of their problems ADHD. So its prevalence requires us to address it. Second, most importantly for this podcast, is that you can resolve it. You can actually remove it as a problem, believe it or not. And I will tell you about some of the tactics and strategies that can be used. Third, ADHD reflects a major failing in my profession, psychiatry, and reflects failings in other forms of medicine. And I will tell you how and why. So ADHD, in a way, is, I won't call it a canary in the coal mine, but it's an indicator that we need to do something different in the field of psychiatry and more broadly, medicine. Consider Amy. She's a fictitious 27-year-old single woman who works in a large corporate setting, and she has what she thinks is ADHD. So she goes to see a psychiatrist because her difficulties concentrating, being easily distractible, restlessness are making it very hard for her to perform her job. In addition, she's very tired because the restlessness she feels interferes with her sleep, particularly restlessness of her legs, which just feel like they want to keep moving while she is in bed. So she sees a psychiatrist, and I'll say he, because I'm sexist, and that's how my mind rolls, could be a she, but he listens to her and he whips out a prescription pad and prescribes something. Very likely one of the stimulants, might be another medicine. She goes on her way with a follow-up appointment. The medicine helps her. It helps her a lot to be able to focus and do a much better job and to organize her thoughts. And she continues on the medicine for months. A year passes, and Amy decides one day, is she going to take this the rest of her life? Does she need to take this stimulant, let's say? And why don't I see if I really need it anymore, she thinks. So she tapers herself off it, stops the medication. And what do you think happens? Sooner or later, the symptoms return as if they never left. Now, that is typical, not 100% of the time, but that is typical of the story with psychiatric medications. Why? Because the treatment that she received has two major flaws. Number one, the psychiatric medicine, let's say stimulant, suppresses the symptoms that she has. You might say it chemically coerces her central nervous system into behaving, which is fine as far as it goes, but it does nothing to strengthen her. It does nothing to enhance her innate vitality or internal balance. It does nothing to increase her inner resources so she no longer needs to have this problem. Hence, when she stops the medicine, unless she's done something else in the meantime, and we'll get to what some of those something else's are, she'll be right back where we started. Psychiatric drugs in general do not have the power to help you no longer need them. And this is the result. Second, the doctor, the psychiatrist who prescribed the, let's say, stimulant for her, prescribed it on the basis of her symptoms. He did not prescribe it on the basis of what was causing the symptoms, the root causes of her symptoms. Now imagine you go in to see your PCP complaining of bad abdominal pain. The PCP listens to your story, whips out a prescription pad and said, I have just the medicine that can help with abdominal pain, and gives it to you. What would we call that? We'd call it malpractice. Why? Because there's no understanding of what's causing the abdominal pain. Could it be gas? Could it be cancer? Could it be an infection? Could it be inflammation or something else? Who knows? And psychiatric prescribing, such as was done for Amy, consists of the same thing, prescribing for a symptom without understanding what it is that's contributing to or causing the symptom, particularly what are the root causes. So that's the second reason that her treatment in the end was unsuccessful. It didn't strengthen her, and it didn't address root causes. A third reason that it didn't help her, and this is a little subtler, but she was given a diagnosis of ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, naturally. That is a thing. ADHD is a thing. It's something you have. Her doctor diagnosed her as ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. Naturally, he diagnosed her as having a thing, a disorder. It's something you have, like a peanut butter and jelly sandwich or a fire red Mustang. It's a thing. When your problem is a thing, there's no indication that it's soluble other than having to go see an expert who can get rid of that thing. Instead, ADHD is not a thing, it's a dysfunction. A big difference. A dysfunction means that there's something in the process of its occurring that interacts with other processes, which is true because we're unified beings, and any abnormal process within any of us is bound to affect other processes, or those other processes can affect it. We're whole people. So that to compartmentalize Amy's problem as a pathological thing is to ignore the fact that there are various contributing factors outside of that thing that could be having some influence on it, or vice versa. And we'll see that that's true. So these three reasons doomed Amy's treatment to being, in the end, unsuccessful. Didn't strengthen her, not addressing root causes, and not considering that her problem is a dysfunction rather than a thing that's related to other aspects of her. So Amy goes to see another doctor, a psychiatrist perhaps, a functional or integrative psychiatrist, or a PCP or internist, also functional or integrative, or perhaps a naturopath who has an ND instead of an MD. Why do I specify these particular practitioners? Well, they all are interested in treating the whole person. So the new doctor that Amy sees listens to her story, if it's appropriate, does a physical, and then orders a whole bunch of lab tests, mostly blood tests, to try to understand what might be the root causes in her ADHD. And among the findings of the blood tests, he tells her that she has a marked deficiency of vitamin D. She also has a marked deficiency of the trace mineral zinc. Now, when is the last time your physician talked to you about zinc? Probably never, although it's an essential trace mineral all of us have that is involved intimately in a wide variety of metabolic biological processes, affecting our ability to manufacture the kinds of neurotransmitters that regulate our moods, that affect our cognitive facilities, that affect our immune system, our digestion, and on and on. It's a vital ingredient, and when it's deficient, that's been associated with a much higher risk of ADHD. Same with vitamin D. Deficient vitamin D is involved in countless bodily processes, including, for psychiatric purposes, its essential role in regulating the production of neurotransmitters, particularly serotonin, vital in our immune functioning and in so many other aspects of our beings. And that also, deficiency of that is associated with a significantly higher risk of ADHD. And when people have been deficient in vitamin D or zinc, and their deficiencies have been replenished with supplements, their ADHD has improved and even gone away. The doctor found that she is deficient in ferritin, Ferritin. That's the protein that carries around iron in our system. And when that's deficient, we're in effect deficient in iron, even if we're not anemic. And deficiency in that also has been associated with ADHD and, in particular, the restless legs syndrome from which she suffers. So prescription of that would be very likely, as it was with Amy, to help get rid of the restless legs, as well as contribute to the improvement in her ADHD. Supposing none of these tests were abnormal, or maybe the replenishment of the deficiencies helped some, but not completely. The doctor also advised her to pay attention to her diet and the correlation between particular things that she ate, with a special attention to wheat and dairy, to see if there was any difference in ADHD symptoms after eating them, consuming them. Now, with still her ADHD needing to be fully resolved, the doctor turns to a variety of natural supplements, many of them consisting, or some of them, consisting of micronutrients that are already present in our systems, some not, but all of which have a documented track record of helping with ADHD. The first one I'll mention, and this may disturb some of you when you hear it, but the first one I'm going to mention is actually lithium. Now, I don't mean the prescribed lithium carbonate that's used for bipolar disorder. That's consumed in much larger number of milligrams of lithium than one consumes of the lithium orotate, which is what this doctor prescribes for Amy. A newsflash: lithium is a natural part of our soil and groundwater. There's a strong correlation throughout the United States and around the world of an increased likelihood, an increased prevalence of depression, suicidality, and dementia, specifically Alzheimer's, in communities with suboptimal levels of lithium in their drinking water or no lithium in their drinking water. It has a strong track record of helping people not only with ADHD, but, and you can look this up, but in various forms of cognitive impairment, including the earlier stages of Alzheimer's. It actually can help reverse the milder stages of dementia. Well, why haven't we heard about it, Dr. G? Why hasn't my psychiatrist or my PCP said anything about this? I haven't heard anything about this on the news. The reason, most likely, is money. Nobody is going to profit from lithium orotate. It's very cheap. It's not patentable. It's found in the ground, where lithium is, and nobody's going to make any money from it. So we don't hear about it. Nobody's going to want to do research on it, or very few are, because who's going to fund them? Fortunately, there have been enough studies to document what I've said about lithium orotate. Now, mind you, I'm not recommending for any individual viewer that you actually do any of the things that I'm describing. This does not and should not constitute advice to any particular viewer, but I'm just telling you what's possible, what's been done, and you could take it from there, speak with your physician about it, do your own research. Another thing that's been very helpful that the new Doctor of Amy recommends are OPCs. Now, OPCs are plant chemicals. They're natural compounds found in plants, particularly the colorful kind. And OPC it's a tongue twister of a word. I'm not even sure I could say it now, but oligomeroproanthocyanidins. And they're a type of polyphenol, compounds that are very good for us, not only for ADHD, but for our metabolism and our circulation. Really good for us. Some of the OPCs come from blueberries or turmeric or pine bark or green tea, dark chocolate, a whole bunch of other sources. OPCs can be purchased over the counter, probably most effectively in combination with other OPCs. There's one product I recommend to my ADHD patients that has OPCs from 15 different sources. And they have a track record on helping people with ADHD is documented by research. There are other substances which, if these didn't work or for one reason or other weren't available, also have track records of helping with ADHD. And they include, I'm going to go through them very quickly, rhodiola, an herb, rhodiola. It can be somewhat stimulating, and if you're taking an antidepressant, exercise caution about combining them. You'd better speak with your doctor before doing that because there may be an interaction. NAC, N-acetylcysteine, also is in the class of compounds known as nootropics, which are a group of generally natural substances that improve cognitive functioning. Another one you may have heard of is the medicinal mushroom lion's mane in a high enough dose. That also has benefited people with ADHD, and you can find that evidence online. There's also another substance, phosphatidylserine. So there are others. In addition, and this is really important, her doctor speaks with her about her dissatisfaction with her career path and tells her that it's certainly true for everyone that they have a career in which they are passionate. This is particularly so if you have ADHD, because if you're passionate about something, you're more likely to be able to focus. The dopamine secretion in your brain kicks in and enables you to stick with whatever it is that you're involved in more easily. And really reflecting the flip side of ADHD, many sufferers of whom also tend to hyperfocus, so that even though they have difficulty generally sustaining their attention, they can be so involved in things that bombs could be going off and they will hardly notice. So being involved in a career in which you are passionate takes advantage of that tendency. In addition, people with ADHD are likely to do better in careers that involve change, relatively frequent or regular change in tasks, in job descriptions from day to day or week to week, opportunities for travel to go to different places, because this lifestyle would be in sync with the tendency, the restless tendency that people with ADHD already manifest, restlessness in their thoughts and their physical activity. This brings to mind actually a saying by the philosopher pastor Howard Thurman, who said regarding careers, don't ask what the world needs. Ask what makes you come alive and then go do it. Because what the world needs is people who have become alive. And that certainly applies here if you have ADHD. By the way, it's been found people with ADHD are more likely to be creative, think outside the box. Not all by any means, but if that's the case, then by all means be in some sort of activities, be it career or outside of career, that engages that part of you. Other advice Amy's new doctor gave her was structure your time, provide guardrails around your tendency for your attention to wander. For example, structure your time in bite-sized chunks. So from 10 to 11 today, I'll do XYZ. From 11 to 12, I'll do ABC, like that. Also to be merciful in enforcing boundaries and limits, particularly interruptions from others. So at work, rather than having an open door policy in which anyone can wander in at any time, don't do that, but have office hours, specified times when people know they can come in and have access to you. Works much better. Another tactic that actually a number of my patients have found helpful is to do work with a scratch pad ready at hand. And so if you're in the middle of a task and you suddenly think, oh, I'd better go check the price of gold today and see if I want to buy any more. Or I need to check the email that I was expecting. Don't do those things. Just scribble on the scratch pad next to you, check gold price or check email, and then continue on with the task at hand. And when you finish that, the scratch pad will still be there, and you can decide whether you want to tend to it or not. One more thing that has been found helpful for people with ADHD is to read, not 2-paragraph blurbs online, but whole pages of books, real books. And when you're able to do that, read several pages at a time, then a chapter at a time. So you learn to exercise your innate ability to sustain concentration. It's a muscle that needs to be exercised in the same way. Instead of only listening to 3-minute long pop songs, listen to a movement of a symphony and graduate over time to 2 movements, then a whole symphony. Why? Because much of our society, especially the media, conspire against our being able to do that and attempt to engage us with hits of dopamine. You compare the movie trailer from the 1940s, which you can find on YouTube, with movie trailer in the past year, and it's as if the makers of the trailers are on crack, on meth. They go way, way faster, many, many more scenes. Same thing with paying attention to the news instead of the kind of leisurely news broadcasts from the 60s. Now one scrolls on one news article online, then zips over because of a link to another one, then a link to another one. So that we live now in an ADHD culture. I call it the ADHD-ification of America. And one way to combat that is to get involved in activities that enhance your ability to sustain attention, to concentrate. Well, I've said my piece, and I hope I've provided you with one or two tidbits of useful information, maybe challenged an assumption or two that you had. And I look forward to seeing you at my next podcast, which will be about breathing and thinking your way out of anxiety. Make sure to follow and rate the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And also make sure to subscribe on YouTube at the Mad Shrink Podcast. See you soon.